Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. The gala was in full swing, the kind where laughter doesn't come from joy but from strategy, where everyone's glass is half full but trust is empty. I stood by the bar, bourbon in hand, watching the room from behind the comfort of a half smile. I wasn't there for the networking or the speeches. I was there because Lauren said it mattered to her. "You don't have to come," she'd said. But she wore that red dress, the one she knows gets her attention. Not from me, from them. And something in me knew. She didn't mean don't come. She meant don't interfere. The moment landed before I had the words to process it. Evan, the executive VP with perfect teeth and too much charm, leaned in close to Lauren. His hand rested too comfortably on her lower back. She laughed, not politely. Deep. Loud. The kind of laugh she hadn't used around me in months. I caught his words just barely. "You mind if I borrow your wife tonight?" The punchline wasn't the question. It was her reaction. She laughed harder, tipped her head back. No glance toward me. No correction. No pause. It hit like glass cracking inside my chest. Not a shatter. A slow fracture. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there, bourbon warming my palm while the cold settled into my spine. People around them laughed, too. That fake corporate laugh, like dogs barking at an alpha. But she wasn't barking. She was glowing. That's when I realized something had already shifted. Not tonight. Weeks ago. Months maybe. This wasn't new. This was revealed. The humiliation wasn't in what was said. It was in what wasn't. The absence of boundaries. Of respect. Of loyalty. She wasn't stolen. She was already gone. And I didn't stop it. Not there. Not then. I watched them glide to the dance floor, her hand in his. She didn't look back. I didn't follow. Because something deeper moved in me than jealousy or rage. Something cold. I wasn't going to react. I was going to disappear. But first, I was going to remember. Everything. Every message. Every late meeting. Every shift in her tone. She had laughed at the idea of being borrowed. She had no idea she'd already been returned. I didn't go home right away after the gala. Too much noise inside. I wandered to an after-party at the rooftop bar, alone. The hum of elevator music, the city lights jutting through glass panels. Everything looked festive, but I felt hollow, unanchored. The air was thick with ambition, and I was untethered. That's when I saw Jason. He spotted me first, leaning by the railing, glass in hand, staring at my reflection in the window. He'd been a best man at our wedding, a true friend. Now he looked at me like someone trying to read an encrypted message. He didn't greet me, didn't ask, just stood, quiet. I turned and said, "This was a mistake. I should never have come on." But he cut me mid-sentence. "I saw her tonight," he said softly, voice under the music. With him. That phrase carried more weight than a confrontation ever could. Her name, spoken. Not by me, to ensure I wasn't denying it. By someone else who'd seen it too. I nodded. No sound. Just a slight rise of my glass. He slid closer. "You okay?" I looked at him. Really looked. And he noticed the change. The way my eyes didn't flash, didn't scorch. They'd gone flat, like I'd already reached the end of the road. "I'm fine," I lied. But not to him. From there, things became real. Not brutal. Not explosive. Just inevitable. I went home later, careful not to disturb her. She was already asleep. One arm draped across the pillow, phone still glowing, blue light grazing the sheets. She looked peaceful. Innocent. What poison can you assign a sleeping woman? I sat at the edge of the bed until my head ached. Every thought of revenge slipped through my fingers. I didn't want to accuse her at 2 a.m. I wanted proof. Context. Clarity. I remembered the old iPad in the den, mine and hers, but she changed the passcode weeks ago. Mine opened with our anniversary date. Hers must be his birthday or hotel room. Not mine. I snuck out, found the single-page receipt in the kitchen trash, that generic group name for a dinner meeting, the phone cord left unplugged downstairs, her laptop still active on our work Wi-Fi. He was here, at 1:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. Just observation. Extraction. No confrontation. I backed off. Cleaned up. Went to bed. But I wasn't sleepy. Not really. In the morning, Lauren brushed past me in the hallway with her usual grin. "Tough night?" I nodded. "A little." She moved on. I didn't ask why they were up so late. Because now I had a path. A quiet evolution from husband to observer. From someone who remained forgiving to someone who began to withdraw. Not rage. Not accusation. Just strategy. Because the first hit was done by her and him. And this was my turn not to retaliate, but to react in silence, with precision. I started noticing the rhythms. The small inconsistencies that only become visible once you stop trusting your own timeline. A name that repeated in her stories, subtle shifts in where she left her phone, the way she paused when I asked simple questions, just long enough for a lie to assemble. His name was Ethan, director of product, recently transferred from Chicago. Married, once. Divorced quietly. No kids. Lauren mentioned him a few times before, always attached to harmless sentences. Ethan said the rollout's delayed again. Ethan's pushing for Q3 instead. Ethan's kind of intense, but smart. I used to nod. Now I listened. She changed her password again. Started locking drawers. Booked a second gym membership she never used. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was cataloging. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask. I began to gather. Accessed our shared cloud. She forgot to disconnect her auto-upload. Screenshots of messages, photos from conference rooms, an image with blurred reflections in a window, 2 wine glasses. 1 necktie. 1 dress. No names. But the details whispered their truth. Her laugh and a video message to him, not me. Casual. Close. Intimate. I sat in silence for 20 minutes that night. Not planning yet, just absorbing the weight of it all. The shape of betrayal was no longer abstract. It had a voice. A face. But she was careful. Too careful. Which meant this wasn't new. I cross-checked dates, receipts, app logs. A 4-hour stretch every other Thursday. Same ride service. Same drop-off downtown. Same billing note. Consulting client dinner. She never lied with words. She lied with silence. The hardest part wasn't the content. It was the realization that I'd become invisible. Convenient. The husband-shaped fixture in the background of her life. She'd moved on long before this. She just hadn't bothered to inform me. That's when something shifted. Not in anger, but in clarity. I stopped being confused. Stopped seeking reassurance. I turned off shared accounts, disabled her card on our second credit line. I rerouted our smart home systems, changed my cloud credentials, created backups she didn't know existed. Quiet moves. Surgical steps. She noticed none of it. She was too busy rehearsing smiles and excuses. I let her. I was building my exit, not for drama, but for precision. Like resetting a system from the inside out. Every morning, I looked at her across the kitchen island. She'd sip her coffee, phone angled just enough to block the screen. She thought she was in control. But control is an illusion. And mine was returning, bit by bit. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't planning exposure. I was preparing my absence. Because once I left, she wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose the version of me whoever waited. Disappearing isn't about absence. It's about precision. I didn't leave with a suitcase or a slammed door. I didn't write a note. There was no speech. I just stopped being accessible. It started with a morning like any other. Lauren was in a rush, complaining about a team call while buttering toast with one hand and scrolling her phone with the other. She kissed the air near my cheek and didn't notice when I didn't return the gesture. She thought I was still playing my role. And that suited me. By noon, I had rerouted all my calls. New number, same phone. Work knew. Friends knew. She didn't. I checked into a quiet rental 10 miles out, the kind of place where no one asks questions if you pay in advance. I left the car at the station, took a ride share under an alias. No trace. She texted once that afternoon, "Need anything from Whole Foods?" I didn't answer. By 7 p.m., she was calling. 8 p.m., 6 missed calls. 10:23 p.m., "Where are you?" I didn't respond. At midnight, she used our shared security app to check the cameras. I had already revoked her access. The system blinked. Error. User not found. I watched from my burner phone as panic started to bloom. She wasn't worried about my safety, she was worried about the sudden vacuum. I'd always been there. Predictable. Stable. Convenient. Now I wasn't. I kept watching, not her, but the ripple effect. She called my closest friend, Jason. He answered once, then blocked her. She texted my sister, got no reply. She tried my work phone. Disconnected. I wasn't being cruel. I was being calculated. The next morning, I canceled her secondary credit card. Froze the joint savings. Moved my paycheck to a new account. The health insurance remained for now. I wasn't trying to destroy her. Just to remove myself from the foundation she built lies on. I'd become a ghost in my own life, and now I was just making it official. She showed up at my office the following afternoon, eyes red but posture stiff. My team had instructions. He's traveling indefinitely. No ETA. No one argued. I didn't watch the security footage, but I heard she stood in the lobby for an hour, waiting, hoping. I was already gone, but I wasn't hiding. I was observing. At 3 a.m. that night, she tried again. Whatever this is, can we just talk? I stared at the screen for exactly 60 seconds. Then I turned it off. Because talking is what she did when she needed control. And I had nothing left to say. This wasn't a tantrum. This was the quiet correction of imbalance. The removal of presence is power. Let her feel the weight of absence. Let her explain to friends why her husband wasn't around. Let her guess. I hadn't vanished. I'd just chosen not to be where I wasn't seen. I wasn't done watching. Disappearing was only the first part. The second, making sure the game collapsed without me ever touching the pieces. Her boss. The man from the party. The one who called me buddy with a hand on her waist. His name was Blake Moreland. Regional director. Polished, arrogant, untouchable, or so he thought. The kind of guy who played corporate politics like poker and thought everyone else had a weaker hand. He wasn't wrong, most of the time. But I wasn't everyone. I'd done my research. Quietly. Precisely. The company he ran had a reputation. High turnover. HR complaints that got buried. I started where anyone would open databases, public filings, LinkedIn chatter. It didn't take long to find threads. Unpaid invoices. A vendor lawsuit and arbitration. Multiple complaints sealed by NDAs. Patterns. Patterns always lead somewhere. I knew a guy, Marcus, worked in corporate risk. One call, one favor. He owed me. I didn't say much. Just sent a list of dates and names. Marcus didn't ask questions. He never does. A week later, he forwarded me a confidential memo. Internal audit scheduled. Anonymous tip triggered review. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. But something inside shifted. Lauren was too distracted by my absence to notice the tremor starting in her own building. I knew she'd protect him out of fear or pride. Didn't matter. She had aligned herself with a sinking ship. I waited. By Thursday, Blake canceled a regional meeting. On Friday, HR blocked off an entire floor. Monday, Lauren didn't post her usual crushing Q1 story. Silence. Good. I didn't touch anything. I just pointed the spotlight. One of Blake's associates, a woman named Carla, reached out to a journalist. I had nothing to do with it. But I read the article 3 days later, executive scrutiny at Bluestone Holdings. Sources cite ethics breach. The word anonymous came up 4 times. Lauren hadn't called in 3 days. She was slipping into survival mode. Text started sounding like a script. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're safe. Safe? I was more than safe. I was surgical. People talk about revenge like it's passion. Fire, rage, confrontation. But this wasn't that. This was architecture. Cold steel and distance. Let the world do the work. You just show the cracks. By Friday evening, Blake's office door was locked. Lauren left early. According to a friend, I didn't know she knew I still spoke to. She looked pale. I imagined the scene. No shouting. No scandal. Just cold stares, awkward silences, questions she couldn't answer. At night, she called me again. I let it ring. Then she left a voice message, her voice trembling, trying not to sound like she was unraveling. Peace. Things are happening at work. Just wanted to talk. I miss. I deleted it halfway through. Let her feel the silence. Let him feel the walls closing in. Let them both wonder how it started. And who knew what? I wasn't in the room. But I didn't need to be. Because sometimes the sharpest moves come from the one who walks away and keeps watching from the shadows. When silence doesn't answer, people start talking to themselves. That's what she did. Lauren began posting again filtered photos, vague captions, pretending everything was under control. But even from afar, I could see the cracks. Her tone was off. Her eyes didn't match her smile. She hadn't realized the walls were closing in. Not yet. But I had one last lever to pull, not for drama, not for revenge. Just clarity. Let truth breathe, and it'll do the rest. Lauren's family had always been close-knit. Sunday brunches, group chats, passive-aggressive comments wrapped in faux concern. Her mother adored appearances. Her father? Quiet, but observant. Her sister, Megan, was sharper than she let on. I never reached out to them directly. I didn't need to. But Megan followed me on a forgotten account I hadn't used in months. So I posted something, just one thing, not even a photo. A quote. Silence isn't absence. It's observation. 2 hours later, Megan liked it. 5 minutes after that, she messaged. You okay? I answered with a single sentence. You should ask Lauren. I knew she would. And I knew what Lauren would say or wouldn't. The next day, her mother called mine. I wasn't part of the conversation, but I heard the aftermath. Did you know she's been close to someone at her office? That tone, not judgment, disappointment. It spreads fast, that kind of truth. Not as a scandal, but as a quiet shame. The family chat died that night. Her aunt unfollowed her. Her cousin commented, "Yikes," on an old vacation picture with Blake. And still, I said nothing. That weekend, Lauren showed up at my old apartment. I wasn't there. I'd moved weeks ago. She stood outside, ringing the buzzer. Someone let her in. She waited. A neighbor told me later, she looked lost. Sat in the hallway like she didn't know where to go. Because she didn't. Her coworkers were avoiding her. HR was under pressure. Blake was on leave. And now, her family had gone quiet too. Isolation doesn't scream. It whispers. Her support system? Gone. Not because I tore it away, but because lies don't hold when no one's buying. I got another voicemail, this one shorter. Please. I just want to talk. I don't know what's happening anymore. She knew. She just didn't want to believe it. And me? I watched. Not with joy. Not with vengeance. Just clarity. This wasn't destruction. It was subtraction. One by one, things removed themselves from her life until only the truth remained. A truth she laughed at, played with, until it decided not to play back. I didn't post again. I didn't respond. I didn't return. I just stayed gone. Because some exits aren't doors slammed shut. They're hallways that quietly fade into darkness. And by the time you notice you're alone, the silence has already made itself at home. Silence isn't just the absence of sound. Sometimes, it's the loudest thing in the room. Lauren didn't crash overnight. She frayed slowly, steadily, like threads slipping from a sweater, unraveling with each pull. And no one was pulling anymore. That's what made it worse. She kept reaching for the familiar brunch invites, group chats, check-ins from her coworkers. But what came back was space. Empty, echoing space. The kind that makes your phone feel heavier in your hand when no one texts back. I wasn't hiding. I was just removed. I still passed by her office building occasionally. Not to see her. Just to remind myself how small it all looked now. Once, that place was the center of her world, of our world. Now, it was just windows. Glass and steel and silence. I heard she was coming in late, leaving early. HR had started asking questions. Blake hadn't returned since his sick leave started. Rumor was he wasn't coming back. Something about improprieties. Misuse of company funds. A whistleblower. She didn't know it was me. She never will. That week, she called me 3 times. No voicemail. Just silence, probably hoping to hear mine. Then, a text. I'm sorry if I made you feel distant. Can we meet? Not talk. Not explain. Meet. Like we were still something. Like there was still a we. I didn't answer. Instead, I went to a coffee shop we used to visit together. Sat in the back. Watched the door. She didn't come. Of course she didn't. She wasn't looking for truth, just comfort. Her sister Megan messaged me again. She's not herself. And I almost replied. Almost. But then I remembered every moment she laughed at Blake's jokes a little too long. Every time she called me paranoid when I asked about their late meetings. Every instance where I ignored my instincts just to keep the peace. Peace never owed me anything. It just left when the lies stayed too long. Now, Lauren was surrounded by people, yet completely alone. Isolation doesn't mean you're on an island. Sometimes, it means you're drowning in a crowd that no longer listens. The final thread snapped when I saw her at the grocery store. She didn't see me. She was standing in the frozen aisle, staring at a bag of peas like it held answers. She looked thinner. Makeup smudged, hair tied up like she hadn't slept. She reached for her phone. Checked it. Nothing. Then she sighed. That deep, empty kind of sigh that doesn't fill your lungs. It just tries to fill the silence. I stepped into the next aisle. Waited. Not because I feared confrontation, but because I didn't want to be seen. She didn't deserve my eyes. Not anymore. Isolation isn't punishment. It's consequence. And I had become everything she once claimed I wasn't. Strong. Silent. Gone. The thing about silence is it starts to echo. It builds tension louder than any scream could. And when the silence finally breaks, it's never clean. It tears. I hadn't seen Blake since that night at the gala. The man who once smirked across a crowded room while my wife laughed at his every joke was now a ghost, whispers in boardrooms, an empty chair in conference calls, a suspended email signature. So when I opened the door to my building's gym that morning and saw him standing near the weight rack, I almost thought he was a hallucination. But he wasn't. He was real. And angry. His eyes found mine instantly. No pretense. No smirk. Just bitterness. "You think you're clever?" he spat, stepping forward. I didn't answer. I just kept walking toward the locker room, calm, slow, deliberate. "You think you can just ruin my life and pretend your hands are clean?" Still nothing from me. He followed. "Your wife came to me. I didn't chase her. You pushed her away. Too boring, too safe." I stopped, turned around. He flinched. Just slightly. But I saw it. "You want to know the difference between you and me?" he sneered. "You love too quietly. That's why she got bored." I didn't blink. "I know it was you. The audits. The HR complaints. You think it's over?" Still, I said nothing. Then I stepped closer. Just enough for him to feel the weight of my silence. I looked him in the eye, not with rage, but with pity, like watching a man drowning in a puddle, thinking it was an ocean. I spoke one sentence. Not loud. Not angry. Just cold. "Losing her was your mistake. Thinking I'd do nothing was mine." Then I walked past him. He didn't follow. He wouldn't. The power had shifted. He wasn't a threat anymore. He was a symptom of everything Lauren had let inside our marriage when she thought I wasn't looking. And now, with his empire crumbling and her life unraveling, all that confidence he once wore like cologne had turned to sweat. I didn't tell anyone about the gym confrontation. There was no need. By that afternoon, Blake had deleted his LinkedIn profile. A former assistant posted a vague goodbye message with a line about new beginnings. His car lease was canceled. His company stock? Frozen pending investigation. Lauren called that evening. Twice. I didn't answer. She texted, finally, "Was it you?" I left the message unread. Because confrontation isn't always shouting across a table. Sometimes, it's silence across a battlefield, when your enemy finally realizes they were the only one still fighting. And I had already won. Collapse doesn't always come with sirens. Sometimes, it's quiet. Like a roof caving in under too much snow, slow, inevitable, deadly. It started with the silence. She reached out, calls, texts, emails. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. She knew the absence was intentional, and that burned worse than anything I could have said. I heard from a mutual friend that she tried to host a brunch. No one showed up. Even her sister declined, said she was too busy. But I knew. Everyone knew. Blake's company issued a formal press release. He'd stepped down. Personal reasons, they said. But the whispers were louder than the statement. He was toxic now. Untouchable. The kind of man you erase from contact lists, not just for his mistakes, but because being near him made you guilty by association. Lauren tried to save face. She posted curated selfies, a quote about new chapters, and a picture of her dog with a coffee cup. But the likes were gone. The silence beneath each post was deafening. No hearts. No comments. Just digital dust. One evening, I drove by our old neighborhood. Her car was still in the driveway, parked crooked like she'd rushed in or didn't care anymore. The lights inside flickered. The house looked smaller. Or maybe I'd just grown too much to fit there. A week later, my attorney forwarded a message from hers. She requests a meeting. Closure. I didn't reply. Closure wasn't mine to give. I had already closed that door from the inside. Quietly. Fully. Then came the real unraveling. Her job, reassigned. Not fired, just faded out. She was still technically employed, but without projects, without relevance. A ghost with a title. I knew people in that company. I didn't make calls. I didn't have to. She moved out of the house. Into a small apartment. No announcement, no photos. Just disappeared from the zip code we once called ours. Her mother called me. That was unexpected. She didn't ask me to forgive Lauren. Just to understand that she's not doing well. I listened, then hung up. Because understanding is a luxury you give to someone who fought to keep you. She didn't. I saw her one last time. Not by plan. A grocery store on a Wednesday evening, fluorescent lights making everything look a little worse than it is. She looked thinner, paler. She smiled when she saw me, that awkward, half-hopeful smile of someone who's not sure if they're allowed to feel anything anymore. I didn't stop walking. She stood still, watching, as I passed her aisle like she was just another stranger trying to remember what she came here for. Because that's what she was now, a stranger. The woman who once knew every password, Every scar, every part of me that mattered, now stood in a store holding an avocado, hoping I'd give her something. A nod, a glance, a word. I gave her none. Collapse isn't always explosive. Sometimes it's just no longer being seen. Final moments aren't always loud. They're not explosions or slamming doors. Sometimes they're just the quiet click of a lock behind you. A door closed without a word. 3 months had passed since that grocery store. I hadn't spoken to her. I hadn't thought about her in the ways I used to. There were no dreams, no replayed arguments. Just silence. I'd changed cities. Not far, but far enough. Got a place with high windows and no ghosts. Decorated it with nothing she'd recognize. My clothes were sharper. My sleep was deeper. My mornings were quiet, and not empty, just mine. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Not from her, but from a shared friend. She'd moved again, this time farther. Out of state. No forwarding address. Just a note. She's rebuilding. Slowly. Good for her. Genuinely. But that's the thing with destruction. Once it's done, it's done. You don't go back to the rubble with nostalgia. You leave it. You let it stay buried. I walked through the last pieces of our story one final time, not physically, but mentally. No anger. No grief. Just inventory. There was a time when I would have written her a letter. Closure, maybe. Explanation. Not anymore. She never needed words from me. She needed my silence to understand. The silence had been louder than any scream. That day, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment. The city below buzzed with lives I wasn't part of. And for the first time in years, I felt light. No weight. No regret. No ghost of her hand on my shoulder. I checked my phone. No notifications. Perfect. Then I opened the drawer where her last letter sat. I didn't read it. Just looked at the envelope. Then tore it in half slow, clean. Like cutting a final thread. A thread she probably thought still connected us. It didn't. And just like that, it was done. No final showdown. No dramatic goodbye. She would remember me as the man who didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't fight. The man who didn't chase. And that's what would haunt her. Because people forget chaos. But they never forget the ones who disappeared with dignity. I walked back inside. Shut the balcony door. Looked at myself in the mirror, not the man I was, but the man I'd become. And said, without a tremble in my voice, I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. That was the final moment. And it was enough. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.